तेजस्विनावतीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहैः। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। In the last few verses, what the Gaudapada does is something which is very important, because this whole inquiry about mithya, what is it for? Okay? So up to now we saw that the waker is, we think that waker is the reality. Okay? And the waker is the one who's suffering, who is confused, who is all the afflictions belong to the waker. Okay? Now when the Upanishad shows us that whatever implicit assumptions that you have about the waker and waking being real are not sufficient reasons to establish its reality. Okay? So therefore, the whole purpose of Vedanta is to show you that this waker that you think to be real is what? Not that real, it is mithya. But is it the only purpose of Vedanta? Not at all. Because the Vedanta is not committed to the mithyatvam of the waker. The Vedanta is committed to making you see the satyam. Please don't, otherwise your whole life will be committed to mithya, understanding the mithyatvam of Jagat. That is just one way for you to understand if waker is not the reality about me, then what is the reality about me? That is what your interest is. Your interest is in the truth, satyam, and never in mithya. Okay? So therefore, this is a way to say, if this is not who I am, who am I? And this is why in the last two verses, your conclusion about who you are will what? Continue to be from one thing to the other, okay? Depending upon, whatever you go, wherever you go, until the time what? You see clearly who you are. Okay? Only when you, because wherever there is mithya, there is satyam. Dependent reality, what does it mean? It depends upon something. And that something upon which this mithya depends is there or not? It's already there. So what is the whole pursuit? Seeing that independent reality based on which what? Everything exists. That's all. So that means once you see the reality as it is, all your imaginations will what? Automatically go away. Okay? So this is what he explains in the last two verses. If there is a fact, and if you don't see that fact, then what happens? And you partially see that fact, you imagine things. And that imagination keeps going till the time that you see what is. So the whole pursuit is what? That independent reality already is. It doesn't depend upon your knowing or not knowing it. So the whole pursuit is removing the veil and seeing it for what it is without your own projection. Okay? This is the whole, if you don't understand this, your whole life will be, you think you are thinking, and then all different things about, what does science say about mithya, and what does this philosophy say about mithya, and what does that say about mithya. But that's not the pursuit. The pursuit is to know the truth. Okay? So this is what is very important to keep in mind, that why are you inquiring into the nature of reality? And how does it matter to you? That you have taken something which is mithya for satyam, how does it matter to you? Because that individuality which is mithya, you have taken it as satyam, and all your suffering is because of that. So that means, if you want to remove your suffering, what is the choice? See yourself accurately. That's all. Okay? So this is what Vedanta is for, to make you see yourself accurately. Now, he says, until you see yourself accurately, what happens? Yam bhavam darshayet yasya tam bhavam satupashyati tam chavati sabhutva asau tad grahaha samupaititam. Okay? Here he says, anyone to whom a teacher may show a particular thing as the truth sees that alone. And that thing protects him as he is committed to this entirely. The thing he is committed to reaches him, makes him become one with it. Okay? So we saw that until you come to know what is the truth about yourself, what are you doing? You are living in an illusion. You are living in an illusion, but you are still what?
Trying to reach the reality.
Exactly. In what? Different ways. Because you can't stand your suffering. Okay? And every pursuit that you have is meant for what? Removing that suffering. Some person thinks that by getting more money and more comfort, I will remove suffering centered on I. That's why the whole life is committed to gathering more wealth. The wealth is not for wealth's sake, it is for who? Oneself. Because through wealth, I want to free myself from suffering. Okay? Now the others are interested in power. Somebody is interested in, whatever, dharma and knowledge of things. Okay? Everybody is, through all these different pursuits, is interested in one's own freedom and freedom from one's own suffering. But because they have not identified what is the nature of the problem, they are pursuing moksha, but not directly, through different things. Moksha means freedom. Okay? I'm seeking moksha alone. In fact, initially, what is interesting in Brahma Sutra, Adi Shankaracharya says, initially Vedanta Shastra begins by saying that you have four pursuits. You have pursuits of artha, which is security. You have pursuits of kama, the pleasures. You have pursuit of dharma, which is, just how to be ethical. And the fourth pursuit is moksha, the freedom. Then he changes the standpoint and he says, actually, everybody is interested only in moksha. Because everybody is ultimately interested in one's freedom. Okay? But some people think that that freedom can be gained through artha. So therefore, the person pursues artha because through artha, the person is trying to find one's freedom. Okay. Then what? You think that your freedom can be gained through pursuit of kama. So that means you are interested in moksha, freedom, but you are pursuing it through what? Kama. Then you think that no, being ethical is something which is important in the transactional world. So you are being ethical, dharma. Okay? So that means you are seeking your freedom but through dharma. At one point you realize that this moksha that I am seeking cannot be got through what? Artha, dharma and kama pursuits. Then you look for the same moksha, but what? Through a different means. By questioning that, hey, if I am really unhappy, this is my intrinsic nature, then there is no solution to this problem. Whatever is the intrinsic nature can never be changed. So the only solution to my problem is that I am already free. So then the question comes, if I'm already free, and this is what Vedanta is saying, then why is it that I feel that I'm not free and I'm seeking freedom through different things? So this is where, because I don't see myself accurately, and this is where the moksha, your pursuit of moksha gains a direction, a right direction. Okay? So this is something that one is ultimately pursuing, and that is the freedom. And until that, what here he's saying, you go to different teachers, you go to different spiritual pursuits. You are all through, whether you are doing yoga or you are doing some other any so-called spiritual person that you go to. What are you searching for? The freedom. Okay? Now that person says, oh, when you imagine blue light, there will be some tranquility, and therefore you will find yourself free. So you said, okay, now blue light I have not seen. So maybe when I see this blue light, I will have this freedom. Then somebody will say that, oh, when your body is able to levitate, you will see the freedom. Then you say, yeah, that's true, because I don't know how to levitate. So when I levitate, I will come to know, I will experience the freedom. So that way, you, in the spiritual world, whatever, whoever is taking you with the promise of what?
Showing freedom.
Showing you freedom. Because you are interested in your freedom. And you are taken for a ride all along. Why? Because the starting point is you are not free now, and when you do something, you will be free. But what is the logic? The logic is, if I'm not free and if this is my nature, no matter what I engage in, whether I engage in blue light or pink light, or I levitate, or what I do, I just increase my bodily power a little or my mind power a little, it's inconsequential. Because what is my body in this grand design of things? Still a spot. You increase its powers a little bit. How much will it increase compared to the entire physical world and its design? You increase your mind capacity a little from the existing one. How much will you increase? How much is it compared to this, with that all knowledge which makes the mind of a lizard what it is and the mind of your what it is? Still insignificant. Okay? So that means all the different teachers will promise you different things in the name of freedom, and you keep going from one place to the other because you are interested in your freedom. So this is what he says, Yam Bhavam. The teacher says whatever, and what happens? You are attracted to that teacher and you will go up to that point. Okay. Wherever teacher takes you, till that point you go, you connect to that person. You are all what? Within this samsara, you shift from one to the other. And the pursuit can be what? Erroneous, totally taking you for a ride, or what? Partially helping you to get there. Okay. Or it is there but you don't capture it accurately. So there are so many possibilities on the way that only when you come to know the truth, then you are what? Free from all of this. Otherwise, you go in search for freedom to many different people, and whatever they have to give you, you get that, and in fact, you become totally committed to that. Okay? Because blue light now seems something new, so you now want to experience the blue light. Levitation seems something new, so now you want to experience that and see what it feels like. Okay, so the order and your free will. It's very important. What you are looking, if as long as there is some fancy for something new, you will be taken for a ride. And this is why I say that please, we don't even know what we are looking for really in life. And we don't even know what we want to get in life and how to go about getting it. And we are still so busy trying to get our truth. So you pray, please pray to take you to the truth. Asatoma Satyam. Because I don't even know what is Satyam and I don't even know how to get there. So I try so many different things. And there is no end to my trying. Okay? So this is what he says, Yam Bhavam, whichever teacher connects you to what, you get committed to that entirely and you devote your life entirely to that and you miss out what? The truth. Until you go to a teacher who knows the truth and takes you to the truth. So that means in the spiritual world again, it's almost like a normal world, the so-called spiritual world, you have endless gurus, endless offerings, endless practices, endless promises about experiences, and that never ends until what? And your whole life is committed to that. And you miss the reality. Okay? You may partially get it also because everything that you have done, if you are smart, can lead you, not necessarily, okay, can lead you to Vedanta. But there is no rule. You have to change and you have to discern. So this is what it says. Until you come to Vedanta, you just get committed to different pursuits and different gurus make you see different things. Okay. So now, what exactly is the vision of Vedanta? Where does it all end? This so-called Advaita, if I use the teaching of Advaita fully, and if I understand the nature of Atma accurately, what do I understand about the nature of Atma? It says, the next verse, Na nirodha, na cha utpattihi, na baddha, na cha sadhataha, na mumukshur, na vai muktaha, ityesha paramarthataha. Paramarthata. Okay? In terms, see from the standpoint of the final reality that I discovered, which is about what? Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. Okay? That is what my nature is. The awareness, which is what? Which is, and it is limitless. Okay? Now, is that awareness, now we are speaking from the standpoint of that awareness. Okay? From the point, from the awareness, is there any resolution? Is there any creation? No. Right? And this is why, if you remember, when we talked about two types of upadana karanam, we talked about what? Parinami upadana karanam, and we talked about vivarta upadana karanam. So the awareness is what kind of upadana karanam? Vivarta upadana karanam. What does it then mean? That without undergoing any change, it has become the whole universe. Okay? So from its own standpoint, is there any real creation? The whole thing is as though. Okay? Through its Maya Shakti, it has projected as the whole universe without undergoing any change whatsoever.
Without undergoing any change, it has become
projected itself as the whole universe. And on one hand, what? There is all knowledge. And on the other hand, there is what? Your little knowledge. On one hand, there is the entire physical world. and on the other hand, it is your physical body within that world. There is entire subtle and what? Your little subtle. While doing both simultaneously, Vyashti and Samashti itself, has it undergone any change? No. So this is what he is saying, that from its own standpoint, there is no utpatti, there is no birth, and there is no resolution. There is no baddhaha, na cha sadakaha. Okay? There is no person who is really bound, because all that is here is awareness, which is manifesting in many different names and forms. Okay? So that means your bandhana, okay, is something, your bondage is something, is it real? No. Like Surya's story of a cow's bondage, it is something which is unreal, imaginary. Okay? And because you feel that you are bound, then you become sadhaka. You become the searcher for the freedom. But from the standpoint of awareness, is there any real person who is searching for freedom? The whole show is happening within awareness itself, while all this big show is going on, is what? Totally free from it. So from its own standpoint, there is no bondage, there is no search for the freedom. Okay? Na mumukshuhu. There is no person who is looking for that freedom. Na vai muktaha. Because you can say, now I was a mumukshu, I studied Shastra, I went to the teacher, I listened to Vedanta Shastra, I made all the effort to grow as an individual, and now I am muktaha. Okay? Has awareness, while all this is happening, has awareness undergone any change? No. Okay? So that means navai muktaha iti esha paramarthataha. Okay? In awareness, you cannot attribute any of these activities. Can you say then that these activities are just illusion? No. Right? The awareness has the capacity to manifest, within which this whole show is going on. And the transactions are taking place at what level? Physical, subtle and causal. We are not denying that. Okay? But whatever happens at the subtle, physical and causal level, does it bring about any change in awareness? No. Has awareness undergone any change to become all three? No. So from the standpoint of awareness, it is already free. So when Ishvara says, I am, what is this Ishvara talking about? What is this I that Ishvara is talking about? Awareness. So Ishvara's I is awareness. Please don't think that Ishvara is totally mithya. So that means, but from the standpoint of Ishvara, there is no confusion, because there is no will there. From your standpoint, there is a will, so therefore all this becomes real. Utpatti becomes real, resolution becomes real, search for freedom becomes real, identifying means for freedom becomes real, going to a teacher becomes real. All this is real while what? The veil is on. Once the veil is lifted, in what I see as the true nature of myself, in that none of these activities are taking place. That is the vision, that is the farthest I can go in the discovery of the truth. Yes? So that means the inquiry into mithya leads to what? Discovery of Satya. Because that's what I am interested in. And this is what I discover if I see the reality as it is. Okay? Then, but in order to discover this, what is something which is required by me? It says, वीतराग भयक्रोधैः मुनिभिर् वेदपारगैः निर्विकल्पः हि अयं दृष्टः प्रपञ्चः उपशमो अद्वयः. Okay? Now, what does the translation goes, this Atman, which is free from any division, in which all experiences of the entire world resolve, and which is non-dual, is understood by contemplative and discriminating people who have gone through study of Shastras and who are free from binding desires, fear and anger. Okay? Now one thing you need to understand, which is a very important thing, that very commonly when people look into Vedas and they see the beauty of the Vedas and its capacity to reason so accurately, okay, they want to praise it and they say Veda is very scientific. Is Veda very scientific?
It needs science to justify itself, and science is below it.
Excellent. Right? It doesn't need science to justify it. Right? Within this awareness and all knowledge is science. It is showing something much more than what science can show you. Okay?
Some people are saying it's a science of the self.
That also, the science itself, the methodology of science itself, any science, okay, is based on perception and inference. Any science means that you have to perceive something and then based on that perception, there is what sophisticated inference. Okay. Now, Atma is the only thing which you will never objectify. If you can't objectify it, where is the question of inferring it? Because for any inference, you first need perception. Okay? So people use words without knowing what they mean. Okay? So here we are not talking about Vedanta as any type of science. We are talking about the tradition takes Vedanta as pramana. Pramana means what? Pramana is a means of knowledge. If you want to hear sound, you have to use what? Your ears. You have no choice. You can't say that I want to hear sound, but I'm going to do it with my eyes. Do you have that choice? No. If you want to see the form, what do you need to use? Your eyes. You can't say now I want to, with my tongue, I want to see the forms. If I want to taste, I need to use what?
Tongue.
My tongue. I can't say I want to put my food here and I want my skin, the sense of touch, to taste it. That means whatever you want to know, you have to not only use a means of knowledge, but you have to use the appropriate means of knowledge. This is how every knowledge takes place. Okay? So therefore, it is irreplaceable. Means of knowledge, if I want to know something, I have to employ a means of knowledge. If I want to know the forms, the means of knowledge is what? The eyes. If I want to hear the sounds, the means of knowledge is ears. That's what we mean by means of knowledge. Okay. So, if I want to know the nature about I, which is never subject to objectification or inference, then what is the means of knowledge that I have to know the nature of I? What is the means of knowledge?
Vedas.
Exactly. The Vedas show me what is the nature of I, which otherwise for me it is inaccessible. And because it is inaccessible, no matter how much I engage in the world, through whichever discipline, always the nature of I remains hidden from me. If Veda is means of knowledge for me to remove my ignorance about I, then what? Once Veda makes that promise, then Veda can basically get away with anything. It'll talk anything about Atma and it will say, because you can't know it with your eyes, you can't know it with your ears, so now whatever I'm saying is true. So in order for something to be a valid means of knowledge, it has to make second condition. What is the second condition?
It can't be countered by material.
Excellent. My God, Vedanta, very good. Okay. If what Vedanta is saying is the reality, which you cannot arrive through other means of knowledge, but if it is true, then it cannot be contradicted by any other means of knowledge. That is a very important condition. Otherwise, anything that Vedanta says, you just have to blindly believe. And this is why it becomes the greatest challenge to human mind and say, I'm showing you, you are already free. Now you try to find a logic which contradicts this statement. What a knowledge. I'm starting with what you always wanted to be. Your whole search was for that freedom, and my starting point is you are already that. And I'm going to show you how. Find me a logic which contradicts what I'm saying. Brilliant knowledge. Not just one statement thrown like that, and I have no idea how to make sense of it. What gives strength to Vedanta, please don't take away. You come to Vedanta, you learn it, give it its due. You come, you learn from here and you give something else a due. It's a confused mind. It has an extremely sophisticated methodology to lead you to this discovery. That's what makes it an amazing tradition. It doesn't just remain in the mind of a teacher, it is totally communicated to the other person so that the other person understands the whole thing in its totality. And this is how the knowledge is passed on, unadulterated. One statement here and there, loose statements, so what? What have we gained from those loose statements? Only our imagination. We continue to think I'm the body and then think it is limitless. What gives strength to Vedanta as a pramana is this sophisticated methodology which makes you see this reality and exposes you to so many different standpoints to take you to this fact about yourself. If you don't have any objections are created and answered so that you don't have any ambiguity in your understanding. So this is where he says that Veda Paragaihi. Veda Paragaihi means the person who has exposed oneself to Vedanta understands this reality without any error, without any confusion, without any vagueness. Okay? But while listening to Vedanta, you also need to pay attention to your own growth so that you understand the words of Vedanta accurately without what? Creating your own notions. And this is why not only you have to be Veda Paraga, but you also have to be what? Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha. The person who has taken care of one's personal growth. Both are necessary in order for you to understand this reality. You can have the best teacher, you can have the best tradition, and still it will continue to be a rahasya. Rahasya means a secret for you if you are not prepared for it. Okay? So that means Who is the person who gets this reality? Who has exposed oneself to appropriate means of knowledge and worked for one's own growth. And over a period of time, what happens? The person recognizes that the whole universe is what? Advaya. There is non-duality. All that is here is one reality. Okay? Which is free from division. Okay? Prapancha we saw is where what? All the transactions take place. In order for transactions to take place, you need what? You need subject, you need object, you need instruments, you need what? From somewhere, you need relationships, you need locations. This is what we call prapancha. Okay. For that person who has understood the nature of Atma, the prapancha is not resolved physically. How is it resolved? Huh? Exactly. In your understanding as mithya. You are not denying the prapancha, but it is mithya. Atma, while the prapancha is going on, which depends upon Atma, Atma is already free. This is the understanding of the wise person. You are not trying to manipulate the prapancha and making it resolve. While it is taking place, Atma is already free. Prapancha cannot exist without Atma. Atma is free from prapancha. Okay? And it is nirvikalpa. It does not undergo any change. So this is something which is understood by the wise people. Then the last verse of Advaita Prakaranam is, he is now summarizing what exactly we have seen in Mandukya Upanishad from a slightly different, from a different standpoint. Because up to now, what we saw is, the whole thing is with reference to myself. Okay? So now we also have a discussion of what? Ishvara. So that also needs to be brought in. So the next verse is saying, Tattvam adhyatmikam drushtva tattvam drushtva tu bahyataha tattvi bhutaha tada ramaha tattva aprayujyato bhavet. Okay? So that means, I am interested in my freedom. I have looked at what? The truth of I. What is my identity? My physical body, my subtle body, and my causal body. But is the inquiry only about my physical body, my subtle body, and my causal body? No. If I want to know the truth of the whole universe, what do I need to also inquire into? The bahyataha. Not only adhyatmikam, but also what is external. Only then I come to know the truth of the whole universe. So therefore, the inquiry that we are talking about is not only with reference to Vishwa, Tejasa and Prajna. Vishwa is the physical body, Tejasa is what? The subtle body, Prajna is the causal body. It is also what? It is for the Virat, Hiranyagarbha and Ishvara. Because only then the inquiry is complete. Not only I need to answer what is the truth of my physical body, I need to also know what is the truth of the all physical bodies that exist in the past, present and future. Not only I need to know what is the truth of my subtle body, but the entire subtle universe that exists in the past, present and future. And not only what brings birth to this given body, but also all the causes involved to make the entire world what it is. That is my search for truth. This is why some people say, oh, if I find out my truth, why do I need to inquire about the world? The world doesn't concern me. Hey, that is something, it's like, okay, by understanding the truth of what? Prajna, Vishwa and Tejasa, you think you have understood everything without inquiring into the whole physical world and whole subtle world and whole causal and understanding how it comes? When we talk about the truth, we are talking about the truth of what is. How can you just focus on one little dot and think that by just focusing on that little dot without considering what? The totality, you have arrived at the truth. Okay? So that means the truth of reality has three components. I, the universe, you can't deny the universe in which you live, because of which your presence is there, the presence of your physical body is there. And you can't also deny the cause. You can't just ignore the question, how did this whole universe come about? If you want to know the truth, you have to inquire at each level and then come to what? That reality which sustains all three, which is the truth of all three. This is what is the total understanding of the reality. Otherwise it's very partial. And you think, oh, I know everything. And you don't know anything. Okay? So this is what it says, that the whole inquiry is Adhyatmikam and Bahyataha. Bahyataha means what? The entire universe and the cause of the universe. And when you inquire all the three aspects, and then what? You find there is one reality which sustains all three, then what? You become Tattvi Bhuta. Then is the one that you really know the truth. Okay? And that he says Tata Ramaha. That means then you are totally reveling in that truth. Nothing can shake you from that truth. No matter what happens at physical level, whether with reference to your body or any other body, at any times, awareness is never affected. No matter what happens to your mind or any mind in the past, present and future, Atma is not affected. No matter what causes what changes in the universe, whether it is with reference to you or somebody else or the entire universe, Atma is never affected. Show me what will affect Atma, the awareness. What change taking place where will affect Atma? Where can changes take place? Only at three levels. Sukshma, Sthula and Karana, Vyashti or Samashti. Is there any other possibility? And any of those changes taking place at any level doesn't affect Atma. This is the vision of the wise person. Tattva Ramaha. Totally free, revels in everything, enjoys everything. Okay? And this is what he says, that Tattva Ramaha Tattvat Aprayuchyato Bhavet. Okay? Nothing can keep that person, nothing can ruffle that person where one is taken away from the truth. Okay? So first you want to understand what is reality. Then you say, no matter what happens, I can never be away from the reality. And the reality, no matter what happens at what level, that reality remains unchanged. Are you denying the changes taking place? Please understand, are you denying the changes taking place at the level of physical, subtle and causal? No. You're not manipulating them according to your needs. You are saying, no matter what happens, Atma never changes. This is knowledge. Whether at Vyashti, which is with reference to you, or with reference to the whole world, no matter what happens, Atma remains unchanged. Vision. Unshaken by anything. It's not like today I'm having a good time, so oh, Atma is clear to me. And tomorrow my back is aching, oh, Atma knowledge is gone. Because physical body is feeling pain. Ridiculous. Because that means this whole Atma is reduced to what? One physical body. And when that physical body is in pain, oh, now I don't know Atma. That means all this knowledge is gathered, but one's understanding is exactly as it was before. One little ache can shake your knowledge, because your identification with the body remains, and your identification with that little mind remains. Then you want to all the time, oh, I want only these type of thoughts, I want only this kind of a thing of a body. Hey, and you're so trying to manipulate so that that equanimity, that unchanging thing remains. What are you doing? We are talking about that which, in spite of the individual and causal, all the changes of past, present and future, that reality remains untouched. And what are you busy trying to do? As Uddhav very rightly said, you can say, I am Atma, which is independent of the body, but your identification still continues without even you realizing it. Okay. So this is what he says, the inquiry into the truth involves inquiry into individual and everything outside and the causes, and everything is resolved in this one reality, which is never changing. And the whole thing depends upon that reality. This is the vision of the wise person. Okay? Now, let's move on.
Tattva is wise person.
Sorry?
Tattva.
Tattvibhuta, yeah. Tattva means that which is the reality, and the person knows that, and the person is that.
So, Tattvibhuta.
Tattvibhuta means that if I am the awareness, this is the reality of myself. No matter what happens where, right? Is anything changing at the level of awareness? No. That's what I am. That is me. It is not, awareness is not known as an object. It is known as my nature.
And Tattva Adhyatmik is?
As I said, Adhyatmika means centered on oneself. So that means when I am inquiring into the truth, I not only inquire into the truth of myself, but also what? Bahyata of the universe and the cosmos. Okay. Now, we still have little time? Yes. We can go on to the next chapter, which is what we call Advaita Prakarana. The Advaita Prakarana starts with a very interesting verse. It says, Upasana Shritaha Dharmaha Jate Brahmani Vartate Prak Utpattehe Ajam Sarvam Tena Asau Krupanaha Smritaha. Okay? The seeker of Brahman who has taken to Upasana, okay, exists in Brahman which is born. He believes that before creation of himself and the world, all this was the birthless Brahman, and through Upasana he will regain that Brahman Okay? For that reason, he is considered to be the miser. My God, what's that? Okay? So that means any orientation with reference to me being separate from Ishvara, right? Or my joining Ishvara, my becoming one with Ishvara as a result of action is what? It is a wrong orientation. Because what is the reality? You are one with Ishvara. What keeps you away from Ishvara is only what? Your ignorance, which is your way. There is no entity called Ishvara which is other than you, and through your actions, which are upasana, you have to go what? Go and join that Ishvara. Now Ishvara will be very happy, so you'll say, okay, now you come to me.
What exactly is upasana?
Upasana is any action that you do. There are a lot of upasanas which are given in the Vedas, okay, where you see, for example, on one given aspect, you invoke the presence of Ishvara. For example, on that Shivalinga, when you represent that Shivalinga and you say it stands for every form, and then you pray to that Shivalinga. Okay. So there, this is what we call one form of upasana.
So it's not
Now,
only prayer. Upasana is not only prayer.
upasana is generally done mentally to resolve one's individuality in the total. Okay? But what happens is, if that is good, but if you think if the starting point is that it is other, if you don't include yourself, right? All forms, but somehow you forget to include yourself. Okay? So that means any invocation of Ishvara where you take it as something which is away from you, right? And you have to do something to get your union with that person is a wrong starting point.
It is any kind of practice
Practice.
or meditation
Sure.
which is based upon this assumption.
This assumption. Okay? Because Ishvara includes you, and the truth of Ishvara is your truth also. Okay? But sometimes what happens is that on one hand, if somebody is praying to somebody, to Ishvara, you say it is very good. At least the person has some awareness of the cause, instead of just thinking that there is no cause at all. Okay? So relative to the person who thinks that there is no cause, this person with a partial understanding of the cause is still better. Because even if the person doesn't understand totally what the cause is, the person is relating to the cause in that given manner. That is good. Okay? But imagine that partial understanding, if I think that is the reality, okay? So that means what my understanding of Ishvara is, which is away from me, is the reality. Then what happens? Then
I'm separate.
exactly. So that means that vision itself will make me not look for
Oneness.
exactly. So that means that itself can become a block. Something which is an advantage can turn into a block.
Actually, it is happening with me.
I think it happens
Exactly.
to all of us. So that means
Yes.
the same meditation, the same prayer can be done with an orientation of duality and can be done with an orientation of non-duality.
Exactly.
The shift is
The shift
my
is what you
body.
exactly. Absolutely.
Dangerous.
It is dangerous.
Because the conditioning is such
Such.
that
Or one is away from you. Ishvara is away from
It's a power, it's away,
away from you.
and you have to always surrender to
Correct.
it.
Very dangerous. But that's the conditioning.
That is the conditioning. So that means that conditioning, initially it's an advantage because you see something more than the person who just dismisses it, right? But the same conditioning, because it's a partial understanding and you can't get rid of this partial understanding and you start taking it as reality, becomes a block for you to understand the reality.
So that same idol, deity, is either a manifestation or is an entity,
Exactly.
right?
Right.
So whether I treat it as an
Entity other than you.
and other than me,
Yeah.
and I'm saying now I need resolution or I need a union or whatever, or I use it as a manifestation.
Exactly.
Wow,
Absolutely.
wow, this is huge.
That is huge.
Yeah. It is, so I can look at it as somewhere a part of me with whom I am having dialogue to gain either clarity or to seek answers to different problems, and I am having dialogue with it. Earlier I used to see it somewhere there. Now I have to see it as a part of me.
Yeah. And makes your buddhi what it is, and that are all knowledge. You said, hey, lead my buddhi in the right direction. You can still have a dialogue.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
but now it will
was not somebody out there and said, please help me.
It will be close to
Close
my
to-
heart.
Exactly. Exactly.
My God.
I know this is huge and this is dangerous. In fact, I think you're all doing that.
And that's why there is a resistance to prayer. Because you think that by praying, you're giving reality to an entity which is other than you. Yeah. But it is not. Because that entity is there, it includes you. So you can still pray to that entity.
So
right?
all these
And
sacrificial practices, you know, a lot of people tell you sacrifice this and then there will be a union or your prayers will be answered. That will also come under upasana.
yeah, those will all will come under upasana. Exactly. See, there is nothing wrong in having certain kind of mastery over oneself.
I understood.
So
There's nothing wrong.
wrong
It's just
in
how you are
exactly.
viewing it
Absolutely.
and how you are
Absolutely.
understanding it. Basically,
Absolutely.
it's only in your buddhi.
Yes.
So, what is being done is fine as long as you understand it correctly. This is huge.
Miles to go before I sleep.
Don't say that. I think the very fact that you recognize all these nuances itself is a huge leap ahead because you understand that. Otherwise, you are caught. You don't
So you're
realize.
still asking for help,
Yeah.
but again with a different understanding.
Different.
Not that I'm
Remove my
away,
veil so
but
that
I'm
I can
asking
see
the help
clearly.
from Ishvara, the manifestation, not from some entities. Still asking for the same
You
help.
want to say
But
something?
what I feel, in this second thing where our responsibility increases. When I see an entity, someone who is very far away, larger than me, then automatically I surrender and I leave everything there. Over here, my responsibility increases.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Now, what I wanted to say is that it's very interesting that in all these spiritual books, you will find some stories or analogies and some. So, for example, there is one very famous story which is the jiva is like a doll made of salt, and it is standing on the beach in front of the ocean, and it wants to merge with the ocean. And when it will merge with the ocean, it will realize that it has fused and it is one with the ocean. Oh, very beautiful, very beautiful. Hey, what is wrong? there is one assumption which is wrong from the starting itself. What is the assumption which is wrong?
That salt is different.
You see? Then there are other stories which are like, in order to reach God, you have to dive deep. Yeah. In order to reach God, so there is an analogy which is given. You have to go very deep in the ocean, in the depth of the ocean, and there you will find the pearl of wisdom, or the pearl of the fusion, or the pearl of this oneness. Again, what is the assumption?
You have to travel somewhere.
You have to go somewhere, reach somewhere. Then there are other stories where, and this is what is saying here also, at some point in the past, in the remote past, I was one with Ishvara and God. And then I became separated. And then now, all what I'm doing is trying to regain and merge again back with Ishvara. Again, same assumption.
But at the physical level, isn't that true?
No, because the total physical includes your
Includes your
physical.
physical body.
At every level,
Yeah, but
You are
at the
permitted.
jiva level, the journey of life that we were talking
yeah, but it's
about.
already there.
It's there.
What?
The awareness that you enjoy is the same. At every level, you are pervaded by Ishvara. There is never a time you are separate from Ishvara.
Sometimes
See,
your mind
Ishvara
is
includes you.
Sometimes your mind is separate. Your way of thinking.
What we are talking about is that intelligence which ticks your neurons in a way that your thinking is different from my thinking. That is the intelligence. So you could be thinking there is no Ishvara. She can be thinking there is Ishvara which is other than me. I can be thinking I and Ishvara are the same. Right? For all of us, there are neurons ticking. And that intelligence which makes the neurons tick, because of which you can think like this, is Ishvara. It is not opposed. You see, it includes every thinking. Either your thinking is accurate or it is not accurate. It is making every thought in everybody's mind possible. This is Ishvara.
So the whole starting point from yoga is an error. It means to connect, to yoke or something like this.
That's what I know. This is
And
very
how is Swamiji speaking about this, if I can ask?
About?
Yoga, because this Yoga Sutra from Swami Dayananda, maybe it's not a question now.
See, I think there is a traditional people of yoga and what they say, what Swamiji gives it a complete Vedanta vision.
Yes, I'm really
So
curious
therefore-
about this
Yeah, exactly.
Yoga
So,
Sutra.
so he is, whether the Yoga Sutras say that or not, but Swamiji is using, because so many people are interested in yoga and Yoga Sutras. So he is very clever because through that he wants to give them Vedanta and negate the existing notions people have about what those Yoga Sutras are saying.
And it is also all this very common assumption which is prevalent everywhere, is that through a practice of meditation you will reach moksha.
Yes.
Okay? That is all over. This is what he's saying. Upasana is a form of meditation. It includes different forms of meditation. So by meditation alone, the starting point is that you are separate from Brahman or Ishvara, and through the practice, you will gain the oneness.
That is the 8th point of Patanjali. Samadhi.
Some subtle practice, very elaborate. We are not speaking of this simple meditation, it's very elaborate, very intricate, very beautiful and so on.
But
You
then-
see, you see where it is right in some ways, and there is a place for meditation. But you see also where there is something wrong, right? You see that? What is wrong in this meditation alone will give you moksha?
Your Vedanta says that you are already one. Only realizing that you are one is what matters.
And thinking that the thoughtless state is samadhi.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter if there are thoughts or no thoughts. No, but I know in our tradition yoga they are saying this is the highest you can reach.
Yeah.
Nirvikalpa samadhi or the other kinds of
But
samadhi.
then why do we do all it as a kind of meditation?
Preparation.
As a recognition of the...
Because there is a reality of Ishvara, you cannot deny that reality, right? Your physical body, you can't say, okay, you have to ask this question, where did my physical body come from? Right? So there is all knowledge. It's not like, what does it matter? Because if you're interested in reality, you need to know that there is Ishvara.
But then, how will meditation help me?
Exactly. Then why do meditation?
Why do meditation will come?
Will
Let's
come. It
first
will come.
understand what is being said. In
It will
fact,
come.
he explains then why meditation. Okay. So if meditation is not for, right, generally people think that right now I'm away from Ishvara. Through the practice of meditation, I will join with Ishvara. If this is your orientation, then it is wrong. But if the meditation is done, we will see. To see clearly that all that is here is Ishvara, it is a very useful meditation. Like the prayer, same thing, same logic applies. Okay? You can be doing a prayer thinking what? I am separate from Ishvara and I want to join with Ishvara. Or you can be doing a prayer recognizing what? All that is here is Ishvara and you are one manifestation. Okay? And if you don't know the reality, ask for help from Ishvara to understand the reality. Hey, if you pervade everything and if my nature is same as your nature, show that to me. That is your prayer.
This is the prayer I used this morning in meditation. You remember?
Brahmananda Parameswara.
Now after that, before starting this japa, I said, Ishvara, help me see, give me the courage and commitment to see your presence everywhere and to see that I am not separate from you.
Okay. So now, I think this is something big that you need to think about. We'll do the next verses in the next class. But I would like to, this is an important point because there is a shift for many people. So we need to dwell on that to revise our opinions. Every time there is a revision of opinion, we need to dwell on it. Okay? Because it requires you to re-understand things which are so ingrained in you. So we need to spend some time. Okay? So, but having done so, now we will proceed.
But are we understanding?
I think I don't know. I think you are understanding. I mean, it's easy, no? If I think that I am totally separate and I have to join this entity, then it's a wrong orientation. But if I see that all that is here is that entity, right? And if I don't see it how and at what levels, then I'm asking for clarity to see it. Then it is proper.
It's like the wave who takes itself as being separate from the ocean and who wants to join the ocean. That's all. It's very simple. Never away from the ocean.
So this is why this person is called Krupana. Krupana is what? I'll just finish this verse so that we can proceed because we have only 2 days and I need to finish quite a bit. So that's why I need to proceed a little bit. Okay? So, but I do encourage for you to dwell because when there is a shift in understanding where your notions are being dropped, we need to spend time. Okay? We are not committed to finishing, we are committed to making you understand. Okay? So, now this person, why is this person called Krupana? Krupana, who is the person who's Krupana?
I don't know what.
Okay, Krupana means means the person is a miser. Okay? Who is a miser person? If you don't have enough money and if you don't spend, are you called a miser person? No. You are just a very objective human being. But imagine if you have money and you have difficulty in spending it, then who are you? Miser. Because what is the potential and what you realize out of your own distortion is what little. You don't make the resources given to you, but you don't make adequate use of that resource because of your own misunderstanding. Now, you're born as a human being. You're born with a buddhi. A buddhi that can solve the puzzle of life, which can make you see the reality totally. Okay. Now, somewhere along the line, you get stuck. You get stuck with an orientation that I am this little entity, and then out there, separate from me, there is another huge entity. Okay? And I have to do something to join that entity. This is your orientation. Okay? Now, what is the reality? Exactly. In and through me, and there is no entity which is separate. In and through me, there is this bigger entity, right? And I and that bigger entity enjoy the same truth. But this orientation of me being separate from it and joining, I cannot give up. Who is losing? I am losing. And how much is the loss? Huge. Because this orientation itself, if I cannot give up, how will I understand what is the reality? That means I'm using my buddhi, but I'm not using it fully. I'm stopping myself at a certain level and I can't proceed further.
So here miser means...
Miser means that you have been given this buddhi, but you are stopping with your own orientation. And that orientation you are not willing to give up to really see the reality. That means you are not using the resource which is buddhi that is given to you to its fullest. You are being miser in using it. You are using it partially. Okay? So that means that you can see Ishvara as what? That which pervades everything. And you can pray. It is wonderful. But if you see Ishvara as something which is other than you and pray to that, then you are not using your buddhi adequately. That means in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says there are 3 types of bhaktas: Sattvic, Rajasic and Tamasic. Who is a Sattvic bhakta, or the person who has Shraddha? The one who has this Ananya Buddhi. That I am not separate from you, you show me your nature and you show me the identity. This is a Sattvic bhakta. The person who prays to Ishvara as somebody who's other than him and keeps asking him, you give me this, you give me that, you give me this, is which kind of bhakta? Rajasic bhakta. And another person is praying to, we don't know, of some spirits, thinking that that is Ishvara. Right? And then what? Communicating with those spirits, thinking that it is Ishvara. And committed to what? Now let me communicate here, let me communicate here, let me become the channel. What is this buddhi? What is this bhakti? Tamasic. Because what is one little entity in the entire manifestation seems like what to you? Exactly. Exactly. So that means it's a completely misguided. Sattvic, Rajasic and Tamasic. Even a Bhakta can be.
Rajasic will be.
That I'm separate from Ishvara is a big entity, I'm a small entity, and I just need what? I use him for my little gains. Give me money, give me power, give me this, give me that, because I constantly have all these desires and I just use him as an accomplice, or in time of crisis I ask for help. This is Rajasic. So that means don't put all bhaktas in one category.
And Tamasic will be using.
Or I can use Ishvara to harm somebody. That is also tamasic. I pray for somebody's destruction. That is also tamasic. See, tamasic can manifest in so many different ways also. So Vedanta makes you a nuanced person. Nuanced. You don't create, Bhakta is lovely. Hey, Bhakta, it depends who are you praying to, with what understanding. That is what is going to make you, whether you are a Sattvic or a Rajasic or Tamasic Bhakta.
So when I, before class, when I say, let me understand the knowledge taught fully, accurately.
Yes.
Okay, so I will be Sattvic.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because I am asking
For that.
knowledge for
Yes.
reality.
Knowing the reality
Truth.
of exactly.
And when you go to the temple and pray to Shiva, something where you treat him as an entity, then you're being Rajasic.
Yeah, I mean, if
Maybe
you
they understand
understand,
that
see, Lord,
understanding.
Shiva you're praying doesn't make you Rajasic. Right? What you understand,
Stand of
yeah, exactly. That is what makes you Rajasic.
And when I pray for someone,
Yeah, then you are Sattvic. You are Sattvic because you know somebody's pain and who you are praying to. If you are praying to that all-knowledge Ishvara which pervades everything, what is your understanding of that Ishvara? That's what makes you Rajasic, Sattvic or Tamasic. If you start with only Ananya, Ananya means it is all pervasive. That orientation is Sattvic because it is in keeping with truth. Why is it Sattvic? Because it is in keeping with truth. You are closer to truth. Rajasic is you are using it for your own advantage, but your understanding of the truth is not accurate because you think you are different from that. That's what makes it Rajasic.
I have a very simple question. I'm often praying to Shiva. Please let me understand, give me the knowledge. Is it better to do it for Saraswati or doesn't matter?
No, doesn't matter.
Because you are
Doesn't
saying
matter.
Saraswati.
You can give it any name.
I
Yeah,
was
that
thinking
doesn't
like
matter.
this, but-
Yeah, as long
okay.
as you understand that each one is a
Yes.
representation of this all knowledge,
That-
and
that
with
is
this
not
all
all, yeah.
knowledge, which includes
Okay.
everything you are praying to, doesn't matter.
Because in
Which
last
form?
time mentioned
can
if
have-
Saraswati is then I was thinking maybe okay.
No problem at all. People have different preferences for given manifestation. There is
Okay.
no problem. As long as you don't think that this is the one and others are all
Yeah,
inferior.
yeah.
If you have
Okay.
that, then that becomes a problem. But you can have preference for
Okay.
one form. There is no problem with that. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti